Astrology, and I am here to talk to you about the astrology of April 20th through 26th. We have some intense and important things to talk about this week. There is definitely some dynamics. Before we get into all of that, remember to like, follow, subscribe. We have Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, so that way you don't miss any of the updates, the videos, or the weekly live meditations that we have on Sunday nights at 8:30 p.m. So we start out this week on Sunday, April 20th. This is the day that the sun moves into the sign of Taurus. So happy birthday to all of you Taurus suns out there. The sun is now in your season, and with the sun moving through the sign of Taurus, anybody that has any Taurus placements, just know that the sun is going to move over those planets. As the sun enters the sign of Taurus, it sets us up for this T-square energy that we have moving through this week that has some intensity to it. It has some tension, it has some possible challenges, but it also gives us some place to grow from. So the sun moving into the sign of Taurus is going to instantly make a square to Mars at 1 degree of Leo. So it's moving right into that applying aspect there, as well as moving into applying a square with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, which is at 3 degrees. So it's going to make that exact square with Mars first and then with Pluto. Meanwhile, Mars is moving into an opposition with Pluto, so that's where you get this T-square formation. You have the opposition between those two planets, and then you have the sun in the middle making a square to both of these planets. When the sun moves into the sign of Taurus, it moves into the earthly sign of Venus. It's a spring sign, so there is growth, there is things that are proliferation of life and where things are starting to formulate, starting to grow. There is optimism. There is a groundedness and a stableness, sometimes a simplicity, but that comes from a slowing down and an observation, as well as an appreciation for that which comes in the middle of spring. So think about springtime, where things are growing, flowers are popping up, there's always something new to see in the garden, new blooms, new buds, new flowers. And if we stop and slow down, this is really a good time to just notice lots of beauty that is popping up throughout the different days. So this is where we can get a lot of the qualifications of Taurus being slow to change, being a little simplistic, and liking the finer material desires of life. It is a Venus sign after all. So that's what we have with the sun coming into Taurus. With the square between the sun and Mars, there is a moment of discord between power, strength, will. Both the sun and Mars are planets that like to move forward willfully, and they are both driven and motivated. They both like to shine and be heard. So this can be a little challenge for these two planets to be in a square position. The sun in Taurus likes to slow down. It likes to smell the flowers, like we said. It likes to observe what is growing, and Mars in the sign of Leo wants to just keep the light shining. So whatever the highest expression is, wherever that light is shining, Mars in Leo wants to keep it shining. Where the sun in Taurus may be willing to discover small little bits of light that might kind of be hiding. There is energetic differences here within these two planets. You have a common thread here as well, because Mars is in the sun sign coming into an aspect with the sun. So there's an affinity between Mars and the sun here, and a little bit of reception with Mars being in the sun sign coming into contact with it. The challenge here between these two planets may have us feeling a little bit controlled or a little bit bogged down, but it also may give us a place to grow from. So when we have Sun and Mars coming into a square, there's challenges, there's tensions, there is clashes of will, power, and desire, but we may be able to find a place to grow from that, especially with the reception here between the Sun and Mars. With Mars being in the sign of Leo, there's a way in which Mars and the Sun are able to help each other here a little bit more than they normally able to. And there's a way in which these two planets, these two can work together, even though they're very different and they're challenging each other. You can kind of have the best of both worlds, where Mars in Leo is driven to move forward, and the Sun in Taurus is a little bit more stable, a little bit more grounded, and a little more slow to move. So you have that motivation to move forward, but you also have that groundedness to kind of pull you back. And that's the contemplation that I'm looking at here today, is where can you seek stability while also finding movement within your life, and as these aspects come through here. On this day, we also have Mercury making a quick sextile to Pluto. These aspects can move quickly and can be subtle, but they can also be powerful. I'm seeing this as a moment of increasing bravery and courage. There's some resilience that comes through, and maybe having the ability and the courage to say things that are on our mind that we aren't normally willing to say. This can also kind of lead to that tension between the Sun and Mars, because if they're already kind of at odds with each other, and then we have a little bit of extra courage to say things that we wouldn't normally say, even if they're meant to be said, that can rock the boat. However, it can leave us feeling very empowered once we get through these struggles and we feel that we can say the things that we've been trying to communicate, or we can communicate them clearly. So interesting energy starting out at the beginning of this week. That brings us into Monday, April 21st, where we have the moon in the sign of Aquarius all day. That Aquarius moon is going to make a conjunction to Pluto at 2:19 in the morning, so early morning conjunction to Pluto there. And no exact aspects coming on this day. That brings us into Tuesday, April 22nd, with that Aquarius moon. And we have Venus and Saturn coming together once again. We've had this a few times. We actually talked about this quite a bit last week too. Venus and Saturn were sitting together at, I think, 24 or 25 degrees. Now they're sitting together at 26 degrees. So Saturn scooted ahead of Venus a little bit, because Venus was stationing from retrograde to direct motion. So we had that moment where Venus was moving very, very slowly. So Saturn was able to sneak ahead of it, and then Venus caught right back up with it. So really, this Venus-Saturn energy of taking this hard contemplative look at the path and the way things have, what has conjured itself from the Venus retrograde period, and really contemplating the structures and the limitations that we broke through, the boundaries, and seeing blockages that may have been there if we haven't seen them before. If the blockages have been made clear before, then maybe we're able to set new structures to be able to move forward. This is Venus coming into contact with Saturn through direct motion here. So we've been through the retrograde, we have reworked and reorganized things. So now we are able to move forward with full force. Since we are in that full direct motion now, there may be this ability to kind of just be like, no thanks, whatever that thing is does not work for me, and I'm going to move forward and release what has held me down in a way. And then if there's things that we have not either released, or things that we have suppressed, or just like habits that don't serve us very well that have been coming up, to kind of let them go or move on from them. And if we haven't quite broken away, then that suppressive action could feel really suppressive here with those things that have, if there's things in our lives that have been coming up for us to release them or just put them aside for now, and we have not already done so. So there could be a heaviness that comes with this, or there could just be a lifting up, a feeling of strength and maturing through the process, and really being able to go forward with a a new perspective of what we've learned through the retrograde process. So really, this is a continuation of the energy that we talked about last week. Venus conjoining Saturn in the sign of Pisces, wondering when tending to the emotional spaces within your own life, what has evolved or been cultivated within those emotional spaces. So Venus starting out the retrograde in Aries was very initiatory, very forward movement, very like taking action at first. Then it moved back into Pisces where it was a little more thoughtful, a little bit more reflective, a little bit more emotional. So then we had to kind of stop and look at where the way our actions are affecting things and what is playing out affects us before we move back forward into Aries again. So those emotional spaces, what has been cultivated there, what has evolved through this process? Those are good things to think about as this energy comes through here today. So that's what we have coming through on Tuesday. That Aquarius moon that we have on Tuesday is going to take us right into Wednesday, April 23rd. The moon will move into the sign of Pisces just after 1 a.m. Eastern time. So essentially we have the moon in the sign of Pisces all day on Wednesday. This is where the sun comes into that exact square with Pluto as it moves forward to 3 degrees. So this is a continuation of that T-square energy that we have. So similar to Mars and the sun, maybe there's a little bit more movement with Mars and the sun, being that Mars is a planet of movement and change. Here we also have this intense power, will, ambition, and potentially challenges arising from that. So where the square between Sun and Mars, some of the challenges may be from our actions and our motivations and the things that we do. Some of the challenges with Sun Pluto may be a little bit more focused towards things that come up from the depth or from the underworld, from the shadows. So those things that are pushed aside, those things that maybe have been suppressed, or we try to push them aside, they come forward. With Pluto, there is also, similar to Mars, a very real possibility to feeling like we can overcome challenges in order to feel empowered and feel like we can step forward, step beyond, step above, rise above different things. So there is definitely a possible like victorious type energy with these aspects coming through here this week, but in order to feel victorious, there is probably something that either has to be overcome or has been overcome. So there's difficulty that comes with what we gain from it as well. So coming through this week here, questions that I have for you are: how can we assert our own will in a productive way without inhibiting others? Power is a big word that comes through for Pluto. So when we have the sun, the planet of our soul and our dreams and our ambitions and that solar eternal light that is within us, is coming into contact with Pluto, the planet of power and desire. There could be the ability to feel like we just want to gain all the power and all of the ability. Mars in the sign of Leo is very central focus and very individual light shining, where Pluto in the sign of Aquarius is very much about inclusivity or letting everybody's light shine. So there's a way in which Leo likes to amplify the individualistic energy, and Aquarius doesn't necessarily dull the individual energy, but when everybody is able to stand forward at the same time, then everybody is able to be individualistic, but nobody really stands out because everybody is individualistic in a way. So it can kind of deplete individualism a little bit in a weird type of way, where Leo, that likes to lift everybody up and let everybody's light shine, can kind of deplete the group in a little bit of way by amplifying the individual aspect. So there's this way in which across this this axis here that the sun is interacting with, there's this push and pull between the individual light shining and the collective and the group light shining here. So that's a real tension that we may see coming through here in the beginning part of of this week. So wondering how we can assert our own will without stepping on other people's toes at the same time. That Pisces moon that we end with on Wednesday is going to take us into Thursday, April 24th, where we don't have any exact aspects. We just have a couple lunar aspects as it comes into conjunction with Saturn and Venus. So that really just amplifies that Saturn-Venus energy that we've already had for an extended period of time. That Pisces moon is going to take us right into Friday, April 25th. The moon will move into the sign of Aries just before 3:30 a.m. Eastern time, before conjoining Neptune and Mercury in the sign of Aries. And then as we move forward into Saturday, April 26th, we have the moment of exactness for the Mars-Pluto opposition. So this is a big bulk of what we've been talking about this week, is this T-square, right? This is where we have this aspect at its strongest. So you may feel it start to build through the week into the weekend. This is really that amplification of the Leo-Aquarius axis and that individual versus collective energy. Another way that we can look at it as, rather than like individualistic or autonomy type energy versus collective and group energy, is you can look at it as the changes between light and dark. So Leo is the place of the sun, Aquarius is the place of Saturn. Sun is the brightest planet, Saturn is the dimmest planet in the traditional planets. So there's this way in which there is a contrast between light and dark within Leo and Aquarius, and that may be amplified in some way at the end of this week. So Leo likes to hold the light. It's in a place within the summer season where the light is slowly slipping away, but the light is at its strongest as well. So Leo holds on to light and illuminates light in the strongest way that it possibly can, while realizing that light's going to slip away. So it's kind of like the individual is, we should take this moment to shine while we have the moment to shine, because the light is full brightness, we have the full ability to shine, but at some point we're not going to have that ability anymore. So taking that moment while we are able to. Conversely, on the other end, in the sign of Aquarius, we have a sign that is ruled by Saturn, the dimmest light. So we are in the middle of winter here, holding the strength of the dark light here. Dark is dominant and has the most amount of hours within this part of the winter season, but it's moving towards a place of light. So dark is the strongest. However, the darkness is slowly starting to slip away and light is slowly starting to creep back in before we move into towards the spring season. So within the sign of Aquarius, you are within this space of darkness. Everybody's in this place of darkness, and we can see a light. So we can see moving forward towards something, progressing towards something. This is where you get Aquarius wanting to reach for that highest expression, reaching towards a light that feels like we have to progress towards something a little bit better, where Leo is more like what we have is the here and the now, and we should act here in that moment. So these are tensions that we have coming across this week. Pluto, also being that planet of the underworld, brings forward things from the depths, things that are hidden. So if there are motivations that we have that we aren't necessarily sharing with other people, this might be the time that they really start to come forward. We may start to notice hidden information, insights, powers, strengths, abilities, information, things like that. So as we are coming into the end of this week, I want to leave you with a question of, what are your hidden strengths and potentials? Where do you have abilities or special capabilities that maybe you aren't necessarily sharing with others, or maybe even not sharing with yourself? So what are those hidden things that maybe are in the dark in the sign of Aquarius because of where it is within the zodiacal year, as well as Pluto being there? And where can you extend that forward into the light of Leo season, where Mars is, where we're able to take action and be motivated to drive forward? So very interesting energy coming through this week. Lots of challenges, lots of abilities to grow, lots of places to feel empowered, but it's not without needing to put in a little bit of work. These aspects are not things that for many people will just come very easily. However, at the end of it, it's something that can have lots of people feeling very, very empowered, or very, very struck down too. But we're gonna go with the empowered aspect here. So that is what we have for this week. I hope everybody has the absolute best week possible. I will see you back here next week for our weekly video, as well as Sunday night for weekly astrological meditation. Watching the video and then coming up to the meditation is a great way to prep for your week astrologically, with just having a little extra awareness of the things that are going on, as well as starting to build a relationship with the energies that are around, and just communicating with them in different ways than you have before. So I will see you at meditation and back here next week for the next weekly outlook. Have a great week, everybody.